Hi, I just wanted to go over some of the common tax deductions for the 2021 tax season that we might come across for individuals that are preparing for their 2021 1040 tax return. Some of the common tax deductions are charitable contributions, business meal deduction limits, educator's expense, medical expense deduction, and the child tax credit. Um, so the charitable contribution for 2021, specifically, there were changes that were made for this specific tax year. It allows a deduction of up to $300 with the standard deduction. That would be $600 if married filing jointly. Donations must be cash donations. Non-cash contributions are excluded entirely. Taxpayers should generally provide some type of donations or receipts. If you have us receipts, try to get them to us. I know a lot of people will give out cash. Just be aware that you might be required to produce documentation if it was ever requested from the IRS. But most of the time, the $300 deduction per taxpayer is not going to be too much of an issue. Um, if you have a business or you're running a Schedule C business this year, or you have a Schedule E rental that you're using for business, if you have business meals, 100% of the business meals can be deducted for 2021 and 2022. So basically, restaurant meals with clients and prospects are 100% deductible. Most of the employee meals provided that you're providing to maybe your contractors or your employees at your business, if it's a Schedule C, or if it's a partnership or an LLC or an S corp. Entertainment expense, though, is still not considered a deductible expense. So if you're buying courtside tickets to, say, the Rockets game or the San Antonio Spurs game, entertainment expense like that, you can't actually deduct. You can deduct the meals though that occur that are business related, but nothing entertainment related. There was also a little bit of change to educators expense. If any of you are teachers out there involved in education, working in a grades K through 12, you're always allowed up to $250 deduction for any expense that you personally spend on your classroom supplies, education supplies to help with your teaching job. It's not available for higher learning. So if you're working in college or you're associate professor at a community college, you can't actually qualify for the educator's expense. Some of the changes that were made for 2021 is you can actually now deduct any masks, PPE, or any hand sanitizer types expenses. Generally, again, you should try to provide some level of receipts for compliance purposes. Most of the time, the IRS does not really dive into the educator's expense for teachers. Teachers generally are considered to almost always be eligible for that $250 expense that you can deduct. Some of the medical expense changes for this year, if you have a lot of medical expenses, there are some changes that were to the medical expense deduction. Individuals that are itemized, so if you're on Schedule A, you have a decent amount of expense that allows you to get above that standard deduction threshold. If you have expenses, basically 7.5% of your adjusted gross income. So the threshold to allow medical expenses is actually lower, which is good for the 2021 tax year. And these are just some basic expenses that we have going forward. That these five that I was discussing up here. I'll get to the child tax credit in a minute, but again, just to review, we have the charitable contributions, the business meals deduction limits, the educator's expense, the medical deduction, and then we're going to go over the child tax credit. So a lot of individuals this year had the child tax credit advanced to them. It was changed in 2021 to allow for an increase of $300 per child, $3,600 credit for children 5 years or younger. So most taxpayers will have received a $300 per child credit per month. You should have received a letter from the IRS stating how much of the credit you did receive. If you did not receive that, we can also show you how to pull a tax transcript to get that information, or we can also pull it for you. These are advanced credits that will be reconciled on your 2021 tax return. So they are advanced credits. They're advanced, so they're not something that you're going to have to repay, but it's also something that would not be available whenever it comes time to reconcile your tax return. And last but not least, there were changes to the standard deduction for 2021 that went up. If you're single, that's gone up to $12,550 of your income would considered deducted straight off the top. Head of household is 18,800. Married filing jointly generally is 25,100. So there are some additional credits for if you're blind, if you're a senior, additional age credits and whatnot. But these are just the standard changes. So hopefully that helps. Again, if you're still trying to upload documents for us this tax season, if you have any charitable contributions, even if you don't itemize, you should definitely include them this year. $300 can definitely cut some of your tax owed down. There's no sense in leaving that money on the table for the IRS. If you're an educator, be sure a lot of teachers don't know about this expense or they don't want to provide it. Most of the time, you're always going to find some expense where you've spent money on your classroom. So those are two common deductions that I see all the time that I definitely think we should have. Going forward for 2022, this $300 charitable contribution may be extended. The IRS has not determined whether they've done that or not, but for now, we're just going to consider it for 2021. So hopefully this helps. Have a great rest of your March and early April, and we hope that we will be able to get all of your returns filed timely this year. And thank you again for being one of